Welcome to our PLDC project. These are our group members. Let me briefly describe our project. Our project topics is PHP versus C#. PHP and C# programming languages are the main web development programming language using by current web developers. The team targeted to explain some main differences of them, such as running platform, syntax usage, database usage, etc. Running platform. PHP development environment contains 4 components: a base operating system and server environment, usually Linux; a web server, usually Apache on Linux or IIS on Windows, to interpret HTTP requests and either serve them directly or pass them on the PHP interpreter for execution; a PHP interpreter to pass and execute PHP code and return the results to the web server; a database engine such as MySQL that holds application data, accepts connections from the PHP layer, and modifies or retrieves data from the database. Framework. User opens his web browser at home and types in the URL. After looking up the domain browser, the client sends an HTTP request to the corresponding server IP address. The web server handling HTTP request for the domain when receives the request and notes that the URL ends with a .php suffix. Because the server is programmed to automatically redirect all such requests to the PHP layer, it simply invokes the PHP interpreter and passes it the contents of the named file. The PHP interpreter passes the file, executing the code in the special PHP tags. Within these tags, you can perform calculations, process user inputs, interact with the database, read and write files, etc. Once the script interpreter has completed executing the PHP instructions, it returns the results to the browser and goes back into hibernation. The results returned by the interpreter are transmitted to the browser by the web server. This is the summary of the above explanation. Step 1. User opens the web browser at home and types in the URL to a website. Step 2. The web server handling HTTP request for the domain receives the request. Step 3. The PHP interpreter passes the file, executing the code in the special PHP tags. Step 4. The result returned by the interpreter are transmitted. Advantages of the PHP platform. An important approach is that the PHP code is executed on the server and not on the client browser. This allows web developers to write program code that is completely independent and help us to browse quickly. The important advantage over client-side scripting language such as JavaScript, which often require complex logic to account for browser, because the code is all executed on the server and only the output is sent to the client. It is impossible for user to see the source code of your PHP program. It provides an important security advantage over languages like JavaScript. C#. In the .NET architecture and the .NET framework, there are different important terms and concepts which we will discuss one by one. They are the Common Language Runtime (CLR), Microsoft Intermediate Language (MSIL), just-in-time compilers, JIT, the framework class library, FCL, the common language specification, CLS, the common type system, CTS, garbage collection, GC, the common language runtime. In the .NET architecture, the most important concept of the .NET framework is the existence and functionality of the .NET common language runtime, CLR. The most important concept of the .NET framework is the existence and functionality of the .NET common language runtime, also called .NET Runtime for short. It is a framework layer that resides above the OS and handles execution of all the .NET applications. Our programs don't directly communicate with the OS.